Bada bum, bada bum, bada 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 bum, bada bum, bada 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 bum, bada bum, bada 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 bum, bada bum bum, bada bum, bada bum, bada 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 bum, bada bum, bada 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 bum, bada bum, bada 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 bum, bada bum bum, bada bum, bada bum, bada 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 bum, bada bum, bada 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 bum, bada bum, bada 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 bum, bada bum bum.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 1 of the Marvel What Now podcast. I'm Curt, here with my co-host Peyton.
Hey.
And
we're here,
This
we're
is
doing
very-
it. We're doing this. Are we doing this?
it only took us 6 years.
You know what? Better late than never.
6 years talking about it, and it took a pandemic. It took quarantine
Financial
to bring us together.
Of the government. This is needed. We are needed.
We're just answering the call.
Exactly.
There's
Avengers Assemble, right?
There's just not enough Marvel podcasts out there, so there was a void in the market, and we had to fill that.
Exactly.
So yeah, this is our first one. We're both pretty new to podcasts. I am totally just faking it till we make it, assuming we make it. First take, we're going to be looking at Wandavision that just came out this past week. And I know we both have been really looking forward to this. When was the last thing that came out? It was Far From Home. Came out 7 years ago or something like that.
In pandemic time, 30 years. So Tom Holland is now an adult. The next Spider-Man movie is going to be...
He's now Thomas
It's going to be him and Tobey Maguire fighting as grandpas. It's going to be great.
Yeah, so today we're going to be breaking down episodes 1 and 2 of WandaVision. And we're going to be talking some theories, just talk about, some of the things we noticed, questions that definitely popped up, discussions. There's no shortage of things to talk about for sure.
Easter eggs galore. Oh my gosh.
Oh my
Jam-packed.
God. So many. I had to just pause every screen or every scene and just look and be like, okay, that's a call out to this. This is a call back to that. This is just
and
insane.
So many things you don't even know too. It's it's mind blowing.
I know we've gotten the trailers. I was just so pumped for this. It's so just like new and fresh and different, and especially after watching Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman.
on
Wonder Woman. I want to see that movie.
It's the crossover event of the year. Wonder Woman's flying an invisible jet through fireworks, and Marvel's taking chances, and we're going to take inspiration from Dick Van Dyke.
There we go. Okay, yes. It's almost like a New England version of Wonder Woman. Wanda Woman,
Exactly. Whereas Vision calls her Wander.
Oh, I love it. That's the Southern version. The Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman.
No, I
well, first of all,
agree. I feel like we talked about this before, that there has been, of course, all of the shuffling with Black Widow and everything with the pandemic and Eternals. I mean, Eternals already should have come out. I mean, who even knows what's happening with that? I don't even know if this is going to be released anymore. We just talked. This had a lot of pressure. I feel like this had a lot of pressure coming into it. Maybe more so than a lot of the other projects. Even though we've seen Wanda and Vision several different times. There's I would call them central, like important but not central characters. They're always there. They're involved in everything, and they do have very crucial roles, but obviously they were not the A-list characters, or they got the most screen time. We as the audience had to do a lot of filling in the blanks when we would catch up with Wanda and Vision in different places where they are. You know what I mean? In different when we would see them, a lot of material for them was just jam-packed in a very, very, very short amount of time. So this was
even
go ahead.
The two big movies. Well, I mean, they were in several, but like Civil War and Age of Ultron sort of being their first biggest introductions, even though it's dealing with Wanda exploding crossbones and killing all those people. It still exists in Captain America's movie. It's Captain America's story. So him dealing with the fallout of the Avengers. In Age of Ultron, that movie's sort of more about Tony's. So their stories are just intermingled in this, and this is definitely their first chance to really give them some screen time, give them some backstory, but they do it in such an intriguing way, and especially with these characters, even Iron Man was somewhat minor when they introduced him to the movies. So, now you're trying to explain to the general public who the hell Wanda Maximoff and Vision are. Like, no one knows who those are. And I just saw that this was the highest rated MCU property on Rotten Tomatoes.
Only 2 episodes in, too, which is pretty crazy.
So incredible. I mean, even when you watch the show, that they just had a very clear idea from the beginning of what they wanted to be, and using these classic TV shows as a vehicle to tell their story. And the way they do it, like, I grew up watching like Nick at Night, like Brady Bunch, all those old shows late at
Most
night.
of our
So
generation did, yeah.
I did, yeah, absolutely, like somewhat familiar. And it still feels, even though it's comic book characters and it's set in the MCU or it's all these superheroes, it still kind of worked as, very like Dick Van Dyke episode, Bewitched. Like it just works so seamlessly.
It has that very similar act structure of like the entire episode being the entire story, where it's like crazy conundrum happens in the beginning, hijinks in the middle, and then it all ends up happy at the very end. Like they totally took that kind of that episode structure and just applied it to this. But obviously we see the things. There's always the breakdowns, if you will, like the cracks in the wall, if you will, of this kind of world that's being built, or there's so many clues in every bit of this of what I think is just generally happening. You and I we talked about how we want to stay away from like, oh well, we think this is going to happen, like that's kind of like guessing the plot, like, and I just hate that, you know what I mean? Because then it just kind of inevitably sets you up for them doing something completely different, and maybe that's good, but you don't end up liking it, so we always try to focus on
you're disappointed
because it isn't what quote you want. I mean, a lot of bigger fandom things happen about that with different shows and that kind of stuff. So I mean, I can't see how as a fan you don't look at this and go, wow. Like one of what I've been reading a lot, some of the quote criticisms of the show is that they don't know what's going on, or they don't really know what's happening, and quote, the sitcom shtick is getting a little tired already. And I'm like, it's 2 episodes in, it's the 2nd episode, what are you talking about? Like, they're not going to give away the entire use it as like a magic act. They're not going to show you the prestige in the first episode. Like, that's just crazy. So I just have to just ignore those kind of criticisms about it.
I think especially with the first 2 episodes being somewhat similar, they're like black and white, the 50s and 60s, they weren't like great departures in terms of like tones of shows and subject matter. So I think it's, I don't agree with the opinions you were talking about, but like I kind of see where they're coming from. But I think in episode 3, they'll move into like the Brady Bunch era and like color. Like they'll build on that world.
Yeah, I mean,
more.
I think maybe a misconception every person did is to think like every single episode was a difference, because like, there's like elements of Bewitched and I Love Lucy. Like but what I'm saying is like, does that make it bad because they're mixing some things that it's not like, I that doesn't really bother me. Obviously, there's like a progression of the time and the style, and so that's it, but it's also just like everything literally in the entire world is like blending together, and you don't know what's real and all that kind of stuff. Like that, I feel like that's also happening in like the plot too. So I just think this is one of the most interesting everybody says all the MCU movies and properties are the same, which even as a mega fan, I can think there are parts of that criticism that I do think are legitimate. But I think here with these shows now, I watched an interview with Kevin Feige just a couple of days ago, and he talked about how the shows, and not only just the shows, but how Disney can do whatever they want with the shows now too. They don't have to have like a programmed show. So just like Mandalorian, the episodes can be 30 minutes, and that's it. Or it could be 40 if it needs to be. They can just tell whatever story that they want to tell, and it doesn't have to be 20 episodes of a season. I mean, like I love the Arrowverse, and you and I have talked about that. You haven't watched that as much as I have, but I watched a lot of that, especially up to the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover. And one of the big things is like it's like 22 episodes a season. And it's like, my God, they're just eventually there's just going to be like, you're just making shit to spin the wheels. Do you know what I mean? You're just making stakes. And we've talked about this before too, like in The Mandalorian. I said, like, I hate when they just make things, stupid mistakes. Not that they like do mistakes to put characters in peril, that has to happen, but when it's like a dumb mistakes, like don't let Moff Gideon sit by the blaster, like they wouldn't do that. Do you know what I mean? Like make another something that gets him out of that, but that just feels like really tropey to me. But I just don't feel anything like that from this show at all. It just feels new and interesting, and the fact that you don't know what's going on is, to me, one of the most exciting things. Like, obviously, like, WTF, like what is happening here? What is going on? That's the pull for the show for me.
I think the smartest idea is the way they use the classic TV shows as a vehicle, but it makes sense in the story they're telling. You know, like how I think we'll discuss this in a few minutes, but you know, all the women in this reality, you know, if you go back and you watch those the old TV shows, are just people from that generation. You know, they're all about having kids. They're all about like, pump out babies. And I think they're tying that into this show to like somehow introduce, like, well, she was pregnant at the end of episode 2.
That reveal.
It feels like they're almost
we'll
like,
get back to that later, but I just literally
so
clutched the pearls when that happened.
I know this is super late, but we should probably say that, you know, like, spoiler warnings for anyone who hasn't seen the episode. But come on, like, if you haven't seen Wandavision by now,
like, there's going to be some spoilers.
Yeah,
sorry,
but like using the tones of the shows and stuff like drive the narrative of their story is genius. Whereas I know I'm going back to Wonder Woman, but there's just not that many recent comic properties to talk about. I feel like some writer went in the office and it was like, hey, what if it's set in the 80s? And they're like, yeah,
people
sure.
love the 80s. And, like, right. Like,
yeah. Like there was no reason for it to be in the 80s other than just like, oh, Stranger Things are popular. Like, people love the 80s.
Right.
Put it in
that,
the 80s.
Like the 80s, 90s era is really popular. I mean, hello, that is our generation. We can't knock it that much. Come on now. We're just yeah.
Oh, I love the 80s, but yeah, I mean, totally. Someone just being like, 80s are popular, let's do that, versus someone being like, okay, we're gonna cross over every, you know, the past 60 or
well, they're thinking like it has to be post World War II, but it has to be pre 2008. You know, look, if we're looking at that, so it's got to be what's going to sell the most. You know, throw a dartboard, the 80s. So yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah,
I just think that so clearly in this, you can tell, like, you can't, even if you literally can't tell what's going on in the plot, like, you can tell that they're just trying something. I just can't see how someone can't watch. Even I don't know what's going to happen in the show. I don't know whether it's going to continue this. I hope that it's just going to continue to grow. Paul Bettany was on. He was quoted just a couple of days ago as saying that it basically ends up as a crazy action movie at the end, which we'll get back to that in a second about who may be involved in that. But you know, I think it is that slow burn. A lot of the show's been compared to like David Lynch, you know, who one of our best friends is a big Twin Peaks fan. So a lot of it does have that kind of like, when you watch something with David Lynch, there's always this like, just this, his work creates this aura of just like, I feel like just like manic paranoia, where you're like, something is going to happen here that is going to be just nutso. And it's just this like, it's that slow cigarette burn, and then just boom, and you just get these massive, like, literally earth changing, and probably in this world reality changing you know, revelations. So I just I just think both of these episodes were, and I'm not just because we are going to starve for the content, for all the pressure, what it was like, what are they going to do after Endgame, and how is this going to be interesting, and how is it not going to be just this, you know, more Marvel crap. I mean, this to me is like, you know, the future is in good hands, and in ways I'm more excited about it now than I have ever been, and that is, I guess I'm drinking the Kool-Aid like everybody else, but they keep putting out good new things that still have like a little serialization, but also connections to those past. And we'll get back to this in a second too. But I think everything about what is happening in the show is related to everything that we've seen from both of them, from both of these people in this show.
Yeah, I think the best, or what I'm most excited for from this show is to see the evolution of it. The way, you know, they keep these same two characters, you know, Agnes, some of the other supporting characters, like how they stay somewhat consistent throughout the eras, but, you know, telling different stories, you know, like the jokes will evolve, maybe the subject matter. Which, speaking of subject matter, like for, you know, the show taking place in the 50s or 60s, it's a pretty raunchy show. There were a couple of, you know, like pretty naughty call outs with, you know, Vision getting tongue tied.
They made the whole comment about, you know,
the
beds,
like flipping
and
off the light,
you know, magically puts the beds together. I think what they were doing in both of that is like showing the reality of this time period and how things are portrayed, and also doing, like you said, they were also like kind of making a comment and kicking it in the teeth a little bit of like breaking that convention. You know what I mean? I mean, they literally break the convention when, you know, Vision's kind of like I mean, I just could talk about Paul Bettany all day in this role. I mean, I just think he's just completely, absolutely crushing it and knocking it out of the park. And I think I'm scared because I don't know where Vision will be after this show. I mean, I don't know where he's going to be. But we'll get back to that. We'll get to that in a second.
So yeah, I guess we should maybe like start breaking it down. We've got, what were some of the, were there anything that jumped out to you right off the bat? You're like, oh, I've got to talk about this. I've got to get it out of my head. Gosh, there was just so many just inventive things that happened, like with the way they did the commercial ads as callbacks to some of her trauma.
Oh, and I think those each individual ones, I think have like, even though it's like a 10, 15 second, 20 second situation, that you that trauma thing that you mentioned is crucial, I think, to the entire season of what they're doing here, and how the villains of who I think that are the quote villains of this show are manipulating Wanda.
Who do you think the
well, the first question you asked me is what was something that jumped out to me immediately after watching the first two episodes? Okay, I don't think that in any bit of the press releases, in any bit of this, and they've never ever talked. They've not talked about, and no person has been confirmed as the villain. You know, obviously, we'll get to Catherine Hahn. I want to spend just minutes just talking about her incredible amazingness, just because she's just so perfect. Yes.
Oh my God, so good.
I cannot watch. You cannot, even as maybe not as a casual fan, but the first two episodes, Mephisto. We had talked about Mephisto for a while. Like, are they going to do him? You and I had talked about. We thought that Christian Bale would have been a really, really good choice if he was potentially somebody they were looking at. But you know, obviously he's going to be Gore now. But would they go there? Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the thing, is like, would they go there? I mean, they kind of explained away gods and stuff in like a kind of in a kind of like a, you know, a kind of just kind of dismissive way. I mean, you know, it's like, oh, gods in this, whatever, you call them gods, whatever, this kind of stuff. So I feel like it would be almost a very similar thing where they're just going to equate Mephisto to, just like I think what's going to happen in the Eternals is, like, I think the Eternals are going to be like analogs and our inspiration in terms of humans for why we create the Greek gods and that kind of stuff. And there's going to be some sort of like connection to that. Like, they are the literal inspiration for what these ancient things were created. So I think they're going to do it in that way, and like he is a demon, not that it's like literally hell, but there's like a hell world, or, you know, they're introducing all this stuff. And, you know, they're doing this multiverse thing. They confirmed that this, and then Doctor Strange 2 and then Spider-Man 3 are going to be this multiverse situation. So he could be in like a Dormammu situation. He could be a ruler of this hellish quote realm, you know, where he is this kind of like quote god of it. But to me, Mephisto immediately is like, if they cast somebody huge as Mephisto and they haven't even talked about it at all, and it's going to be like, boom, and it's going to be one of those things. I do think he's already in the show as well, and I do think there's already several clues that he is involved in this. So that would be my, oh my God, immediately this is who the big bad is, even if he is going to have a small presence. Like, if I think Catherine Hahn is ultimately going to be the quote lead villain of this season, but I do think she is in service of Mephisto. Absolutely.
I completely agree. And I think a lot of people had that speculation going into the show before we even knew what it was, just based on, her relation to sort of Mephisto in the comic books. But I do agree that like the term the term gods in the MCU is used very like loosely, to refer to God. But then you also have, you have Thor, but you also have Dormammu, which you mentioned. I think that'll be somewhat the equivalent of Mephisto, this like interdimensional being. He rules over his quote unquote hell dimension.
I mean, they can even make. For
me,
they can make connections to him through the rest of the MCU. He can be connected back to Hydra. He can be connected to Blade and Dracula. He can be someone who is another, almost like a cosmic, serialized villain. Do you know what I mean? Like he's like a villain for all of them that continues on and infects all of their lives and their situations.
Yeah, this is one of my big theories is that Wanda's already met Mephisto, because when the show starts, it just it starts you right in the show. You don't know,
right? And they're the shield, whatever.
But
we've gleaned together from the trailers that Sword is somehow monitoring wherever this reality quote bubble that Wanda is in. That's happening. So that has to have, I agree with you, that has to have already happened. And we are just jumping into the TV program that they're picking up somehow.
Yes. Like Wanda mentioned several times, using this classic TV show trope. They just want to fit in. They just want to be normal, like suburbanites. And that's
been her entire through line.
Real world
absolutely.
As well.
I love that they're going back to Age of Ultron, and they're really making that they're making that matter. I really, really love that for both of them, for both Vision and her.
And I think we'll see some kind of Ultron reference in a commercial that we'll see in
or some sort of
future
haunting dream of hers. Like he is integral to her, like, and Pietro's life, so that, and obviously that there's going to be something with him. I'm praying Aaron Taylor Johnson did something, even just something small. I hope he did just something small. And Evan Peters is supposed to be in it too, so I hope that. I think Evan Peters may be Speed grown up. We'll see. I don't know. Who knows? That could be many other things, though. But I really hope Aaron Taylor Johnson did just something small. He for years ago said he didn't want to return, and he only took the role because he died in the movie. But I think that Quicksilver is just there's more to him in that, and they can use him a little bit more as opposed to just the trauma for Wanda. But
I mean, even Wanda and Vision in this show are completely different from who they were in Age of Ultron. Not necessarily from a character and their motivations, but just in how they're portrayed. So I could see them approaching them like, okay, Quicksilver in Age of Ultron, no, we're not doing that anymore. Like, you're still Quicksilver, but you have like an American accent. You'll be like the brother that comes to visit, and it'll tie into this show in this way. And it's just completely like reinventing
hopefully
the character.
Or
some of the other
just
trauma
becomes his,
that I was thinking about.
The kids end up becoming, which we talked about that before too, that I think obviously they're going to set up the kids, and for the children is, the whole big culty thing that's happening. So maybe Speed becomes what, Quicksilver's, the speedster, if you will, I guess. Who knows? Back to trauma, sir. You were mentioning trauma. Don't we all have it? Don't we all love it? Let's talk about it.
We all do.
Let's talk about our traumas.
I mean, who can't relate to escaping reality right now? I don't think, if that's what's happening, if Wanda's creating her own bubble reality to escape the real world, I mean, I don't think anyone can put that past her right now.
And shit. I mean, come on, girl. I'm like, girl, if I had those powers, I'd do too. Oh my god, I'd be creating my own. I mean, basically, I am doing the same thing right now. I need to. I guess Ashton is going to be my Vision. Ashton's my boyfriend. Ashton is my Vision. So we are having our own version of this as we speak now.
I've created my own pocket reality where everyone gets $700.
I'm going to create a pocket reality where this
The
is
perfect
all
world.
released at once, and I don't have to wait for 9 weeks for it to be done. Thank you, Kevin Feige.
It is kind of interesting how, streaming services basically destroyed cable and live TV.
Well,
and then they're bringing it back.
but here, wait, that's a whole
circle.
other conversation. But I think that comes down to like just keeping it in the national talk for much longer, because now it is going to be for another month and a half, 2 months. People are going to continue to be talking about the show as opposed to just all being done and you talking about the ending of it in one weekend. So I think there's a lot of bigger strategies happening there. But the freedom though of doing the episodes is to me the best thing. So. All right, let's get back to talking about actual trauma. I'm tired of talking about the traumas of the world. Let's talk about Wanda's traumas. Wanda's traumas. That sounds like a
Wanda's traumas. That was the working title
in the mall.
Dr. Seuss's Wanda's traumas.
Okay, so obviously this.
So she's had a lot of trauma in the MCU, but this is the first time she's headlining a story. She gets the main storyline, but these will take form as a commercial in some capacity, I'd imagine. But the death of her brother and
Vision's destruction. I mean, Vision's destruction right in front of her in Infinity War.
Age of Ultron, like I'm sure she feels guilt for like mind controlling the Hulk, which then goes and destroys
and then obviously
Johannesburg.
The beginning of Civil War with the explosion,
killing Crossbones. Fighting friends. Watching Vision die twice in front of her, like having to kill Vision one of those times. So I think all of those will come back in some capacity, and maybe even a hidden story. Like maybe they'll allude to something that we're not even aware of.
Let's just get right down to it. I think we talked about how that we think that everything that's happening here, and hopefully we will see in the future as this plays out, that the villain here. Let's talk about. I want to know. I'm going to ask you a question. Why? Why is this happening, and who is doing this? The Jimmy Park character, the Ant-Man, it looks like he's obviously working for SWORD now, which makes sense. If he and Ant-Man are buddies, Ant-Man was probably like, hey, come on, do some good work over here. So we see there's a connection there. It's already been confirmed that voice is him. So my question to you is, what is happening here? What do you think is happening to Wanda? Who is doing it and why? Because then I think that's going to answer these other questions.
Okay.
We need to talk about why it's happening, and then we can see
well, maybe we should
look, it's our first episode. Give us a break.
Cut us some slack, folks. Okay, so my overall 360 idea of what this show is, Wanda dealing with her past trauma, somehow either made a deal with Mephisto before the show, or this is just her creating her own bubble because she doesn't want to deal with the real world, and she's using all these childhood television shows that portray this perfect life. Like she's creating this fake reality to help her deal, and in this fake reality she's brought back Vision. She never even acknowledges that.
Remember, they can't explain where they came from. Remember,
so
the first
this is her dealing with that
they
trauma.
Can't explain where they came from. When Mr. Hart, Mrs. Hart, she asked them like, where did you get married? Then they're like, where did we get? They have that realization in the moment too. So it's almost like they don't even realize. It's like nothing happened to them prior to like literally the episode beginning. Like that's where their existence begins to them in a way.
Exactly. So I think that's her maybe creating this pocket reality to escape. She says in the one episode, I believe it's to Dottie, because Dottie's kind of like attacking her verbally, and Wanda's like, well, I don't want to hurt anybody. So I think she's just trying to escape, and she doesn't realize the effect that it's having on the outside world. And that's when SWORD's brought in. They know Wanda. They've worked with her, the Avengers, in some capacity. So you hear Jimmy Woo's voice, like, who's doing this to you? Like, are you okay? They're trying to break in. And
Tiana Paris
helicopter in episode 2, which in the trailer you see, there's something that she's doing to the outside world, and they're trying to help her / stop her. But within this reality, I believe, and you use this word like coven, like the women or the witches, maybe some of the men
possibly
are
from Hydra. Maybe they're like, maybe
and
they
I
are
believe
like,
in that dream.
You know, you could connect the Mephisto back to like Hydra, and you know, because to me the only way like a witch coven could exist away from like Doctor Strange and the Ancient One would be this like secret sect. So it's like, to me it's a very like clandestine society of like either like a I feel like it's a coven of witches, and even if the men are connected to them, they work for them, or they're like their husbands because they are their subservience. Do you know what I mean? Like, I do think the women are the ones in control here.
I feel like they're very similar to
Caecilius
in Doctor Strange and his, what they call like zealots, like the same way he's the leader of them and they worship Dormammu and they're trying to bring in Dormammu. I think it's something.
I mean, they're demonic worshippers, frankly. That's who they are. That's what the coven is. I think they are worshiping Mephisto. Yes,
they're witches. He's the devil. I think Agatha Harkness is sort of the leader. She keeps talking about her husband Ralph. I mean, but we never see Ralph. I think that Ralph 100% is Mephisto. I think that she is sort of like the Bellatrix Lestrange to Voldemort. See that. Like that's what she is to Mephisto. Like his most loyal follower. She's kind of like crazy. She doesn't play by the rules. Dottie's the very like
Emma Caulfield from Buffy. I mean, come on, like it just yes. I mean, the bunnies. The bunnies. Oh god, they got them hoppy legs and twitchy little noses. Come on now. I mean, you got to shout out to Buffy. I mean, come on now. You cannot. You can't. Don't tell me you're going to be casting Emma Caulfield, who is like a genre, superstar in like. Yes, she's gonna
Joss
be.
Whedon
and then
it's so intentional.
Mrs. Hart, I can't think of her name, but the woman from that '70s show. Like, just I mean, come on now. They are. There's something going on there with those women, and I believe that they are in service of Mephisto. So I completely agree with you. You also see in the trailer, just for a second, there's that big flash of that like red wall, which connects back to the credits. The credits, obviously, there's so much to me that's just. I feel like I was telling Ashton after we finished it, I was like, the credits are just telling everything. Like, literally, the credits are showing you exactly what's happening. Like, that's literally what's gonna look. It's her red magic with like the cubes and like they're like, it's almost like they're like Legos that she kind of tears apart, like when they are forming and reforming back together. That's exactly what she's doing. Why it's happening to me, I think that's really clever. I never thought about if he comes to her in some sort of again, like Faustian offer, of like maybe she does wish to escape after Endgame and everything, and she feels like she has nothing left for herself anymore. But
I mean, what's more demonic or devil than like
their wildest
offering
dreams.
Someone all of their dreams come true?
And not only that, reality, but you're offering the person who can literally make it happen. If she, maybe Wanda doesn't realize. I don't know if Wanda realizes that how powerful she actually is. I don't know if she, like, I think this is going to be a realization of her as well, like with the kids, that she will realize in this that she can rewrite reality, and she is that powerful, and that she can do that, because she's not done that yet. She has never done, really. All of her powers have been kind of like telekinesis based. So she's never done a lot of like, I think, like magic stuff until this show, what I would say.
Well, they changed the acronym for SWORD. I believe it's now.
It looks like that's what they're doing with the heroes now, or anybody with powers.
Right. So, I mean, that right there. I mean, if they're the highest level, most threatening weapon observing organization out there, and they're observing Wanda, what does that say about her? Like, she never wanted to be a weapon. Well, I mean, she like signed up for the experiments, but I don't think she wanted to be like the weapon that she is. And so, of course, it's very natural for her to like maybe want to suppress her magic, especially after what she did with like Crossbones,
scared of
blowing up
herself.
people in the world. She's like, okay, like I have to keep it in control. And I think what's happening are the witches, maybe they know, maybe Wanda's like from a line of witches, but like she has maybe some special link to her chaos magic that they don't have. So they want to use her, like unleash her full power and somehow use her to bring Mephisto into this world, which is my biggest theory is that the witches and Mephisto are using her to create the twins, or even just like a child, because maybe Mephisto can't like cross over into our plane. And maybe he can possess people, but maybe he can't stay very long. Maybe he can't inhabit that host. So he's like, okay, here's this super powerful witch. She can bend reality. I'm going to use her, or I'm going to trick her to create these bodies, which I can then inhabit and walk freely in this world. And Mephisto wants to come into our dimension. He wants to like take over, or he just wants to live freely because he's the devil and just wants to
very like
mess with
him
people.
having access to this reality. It has to be that kind of like, or him having him being reborn. I mean, to me, it's I sent the picture to you. It was it's all for you, Damien. Like, to me, it's literally the Omen. Like, the Omen is what's happening in this plot. Is that the Coven is trying to, through Wanda, create a child of the devil, essentially, which would be the Antichrist. I think they're trying to create the Antichrist. Frankly, I mean, they're not going. They may not say that. But it's going to be.
Oh, absolutely.
Say, like, Mephisto
the whole for
the
children.
But really, it's going to be like the Marvel version of the Antichrist.
Even I don't know if this is intentional or it's just my, listening to Bad Religion and seeing this symbol, but the sword logo to me feels, like an inverted cross. So I don't know if there's any kind of like, if that will tie into the show, if there's any kind of like religious or Antichrist
Illuminati-esque. It does have a very like, but I mean, come on now. There's also other clues. I mean, every time they say "for the children," it sounds like Village of the Damned, or what are what was that movie with the kids, the Children of the Damned or whatever? It's like not Children of the Corn. You have to say
Children of the Corn, or
it's like for the children, and it's like this, like everybody. It's like a cult voice, and it keeps getting repeated by everybody, and particularly Agnes. She makes her comment, "You're the star of the show." They're the devil's in the details. He's doing more than that too. So I think
even I think the men in this are maybe some kind of like drones, like Westworld host. And I feel like they're playing that up because in these old TV shows, the dads or the men are always these like bumbling idiots. They're just kind of like goofballs, and I think that sort of plays. They're the ones who power. I feel like the women are much more the ones like men are like running the show.
Subservient. They're like the servants, essentially. So they're there, but they're like, whether they're like each paired off with one of them and they're actually together, and that's their like, whatever person that's there. I completely agree. There is a famous storyline. It says, I'm going to quote this. It says, in the comics, Scarlet Witch's madness was eventually revealed to have been amplified by a powerful demon that sought to cause chaos on Earth. A line that Mr. Hart specifically says, and they say that word chaos several times in the show. Meanwhile, the line evokes Mephisto, Marvel's version of the devil and Lord of Hell. Disturbingly, Scarlet Witch accidentally repurposed pieces of Mephisto's broken soul when she rewrote reality to give herself children in the comics. So I think that is absolutely an amalgamation of what is happening. There is the Coven, whether maybe someone, like you said, maybe the Mephisto under the guise of something comes to Wanda to maybe show her like she has more power than she thinks. And then there's that kind of or maybe Agatha Harkness in like the real world comes to Wanda because she is a villain of the Scarlet Witch. Agnes is. So what if Catherine Hahn is the person? Because if we're saying that Mephisto is not, like, he's really just influencing, like you said, the Voldemort kind of thing. Like, he's like Professor Quirling Catherine Hahn while she's becoming more powered by him. She leads the Coven, and their goal is to get the kid back. So she comes to Wanda in real life to help her with her magic because she has, quote, experience with it. And then that's how they start to manipulate her. I think that's what's happening. Yeah.
Totally agree. Yeah, I don't know if this will tie in with Infinity War, where she actually destroys the Mind Stone in Vision. Like maybe that somehow gave her the ability to a little bit of the Mind Stone's power exists within her, and that's the way she's able to create sort of this real life sentience in this fake reality. So she's literally able to like piece back together her Vision. So he did die. Maybe Shuri like didn't bring him back, but Wanda, through this fake
literally just,
reality or being
I mean, she's able to,
she
can
her
just
powers are
literally
amplified,
like,
and she's able to.
I mean, they have to be careful with this. Like, I think that's how they always tie it to like massive consequences happening. Is like she can literally just like wink him back into existence if she wanted to. Like she could literally just rewrite those things, which that's what I think is happening. I think the Coven and Agatha are trying to get her, whether it's a connection through the Infinity Stones to the children. We talked about this. Wanda is the only character who is literally connected to the Infinity Stones. She is created from one of them and she destroys another one of them. Vision makes the point when he brings up to her that she can destroy it, that she has the magic to like essentially crack apart the crystallized energy. So why couldn't she put it back together? You know, she's probably the only person who could put it back together. And even on top of that, if she can just rewrite reality, she could really just make the Infinity Stones again if she wanted to. I don't think they're going to go that crazy, but I think they are trying to get her to with maybe the chaos that maybe there is a piece of Mephisto inside of Wanda already. Maybe she doesn't even like, there's something around the chaosness of her and her abilities that allows them to go after her to bring Mephisto back. What that could possibly be, I feel like they'll explain that in some sort of version. But yeah, I think like you said that they're trying to get them to have one kid, but that may be the twist, is that she makes two of them. You know what I mean? Like they don't.
Yeah, because I mean she's a twin, so
Right,
I feel like it's only natural that she would want to create twins. Like, you know, her idealistic relationship with children, or, you know, relationship for her children would be to be twins. So I think that's very natural. My big, like, how I think the ending is going to happen, I don't know if we talked about this, like trying not to guess too much because you don't want to be disappointed when it doesn't. But my theory for how everything sort of like wraps up would be, so in this reality, she's created Vision and her twins, like made them real, but they can't escape the bubble yet. And then in the end, Mephisto gives her, because he's the devil and like he wants you to sort of like make your own choice and damn yourself. I think he's gonna say, you give Wanda the choice, like you can either keep Vision or your children, and like he'll inhabit it. He'll inhabit one of them.
Yeah.
Maybe the twins collectively or something, and she gets to keep the other one.
It's
and
like
so
a
she's given
Sophie's
this
choice, but it's for
impossible
Vision
choice
and the
of,
children. Yeah, exactly.
do I choose between my partner or my children? Yeah, and I don't think she'll be able to make it. So I think she will offer herself for Mephisto to possess. And when that happens, you've broken them all out of this reality bubble. Vision is now brought back. He's totally real and alive again. You've now brought back her teenage sons.
Well, yeah,
Wiccan. They're real and exist in the larger MCU.
Haley Steinfeld-esque age.
Yeah, like I think Wanda will now be possessed by Mephisto, walking freely in the MCU, and it'll be a very
Dark
the
Willow
girl from Buffy. I'm blanking on her name.
Yeah,
Willow.
perfect.
Like a very dark
Doctor
Willow.
Strange too.
Yeah. And that will
maybe
lead
she
to the
cracks
events
it
of
open.
Multiverse of Madness.
Yes.
Mephisto using Wanda's powers, warping reality, and it brings back all the other characters, but also creates, I feel like the Marvel movies do such a good job of, okay, we finished this story, but like it created this whole
They can
new
even connect that
list
back
of
to
problems that we have to address.
A lot of people
So,
hate the One More Day storyline, which is terrible in Spider-Man. And I agree with you, but they could repurpose that. And what if they One More Day with Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone, and that's how he gets Emma Stone back, and that's how she's alive. Do you know what I mean? Like, so that's a stupid comic book storyline, but repurposing the MCU in this context of all this, Mephisto having not only his hands in this reality, but all the other realities which they're also going to be bringing into it. That could be cool too. I mean, that's just a crazy idea, but it's something that like works and makes sense for me because Mephisto is, and he's also been rumored to be in Loki as well too. That he also is, his hands are all that's happening in the Loki show too. So I do think that there is somebody they have not revealed that is going to be Mephisto and that is going to be in this.
I agree. He seems like a good. I don't know what his role will be moving forward. Maybe he'll be sort of like an Ultron like level threat, like the mini boss or like the end game kind of boss. But he's sort of he's very different from Thanos. He's not this big bulky guy who's like indestructible and can smash everything. He's deceiving and like trickery, and will give you choices, but there's no right choice. You're screwed either way. I think he's just
he could be chaos
incarnate.
Interesting. They keep saying
threat,
like
maybe Loki without the world domination.
I could really see them leaning into that, and him like that goes back to like him making deals with everybody. It's like it's all about the deals and the chaos and the thing. I think they're going to lean into that more version of like the quote devil. Does that make sense? And like that yeah.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree. I mean, you even saw it like with Surtur in Ragnarok. I mean, that was probably
and
the
if they just explain it as this like fire
what a
demon
hell
from a
could
different
be,
world,
like underground
that's
fire.
Yeah.
I want more, like Devil's Advocate, like Mephisto in a suit, like just
really interesting that you use that
like
movie
walking
because
around, like
I know that they've been talking about it, and they keep talking, and he keeps getting rumored. Keanu Reeves, dude, Keanu Reeves. What if Keanu Reeves is Mephisto, and that that's a role that he would be important.
I would love
in a lot of different things, but he doesn't have to carry it, so it still leaves him free for other projects. The Devil's Advocate switch, instead of him being the role, he's the Al Pacino role. Like I just do. I swear, I think that there's still somebody that they've not announced yet that purposely they're gonna wait. They're gonna wait until this like happens, and then it's. You and I have also talked about the Doctor Strange as well. That I think he's gonna be in this show towards the end of it as well too. I mean, you pointed this out to me, and I didn't even notice this one the first time. But
Absolutely.
The brooches on the women, every person who wears a brooch in this show, watch out. There is something going on with their costume choices.
Yeah. I assume you're referring to, was it Geraldine, Monica Rambeau? She was wearing that very like Doctor
exactly like a Doctor Strange sling ring
portal.
Then if you tie that footage back to what we see that in the pre-release trailer, when she is in a different outfit in like the 70s era, and there's like it shows the outside in the dark, and like she's like laying on the ground and she looks over, and then there's one scene where she's talking to Wanda and she goes, who are you? Or Wanda goes, who are you? And she goes, I don't know. You know what I mean? So if she's already been in it and then she's in a different decade, it's like the same thing that she explained in this episode where she was like, I was just in the backstage and all of a sudden I'm just in the box. Like, it's almost like Wanda is like, everybody's a toy in this, and she just puts them in different places whenever she wants to, whenever she needs them to be them where she needs them to be. Yes.
Like
the helicopter,
like a toy helicopter. Yeah, I totally think anything that like enters in, crosses that threshold into this reality, it's like you become a part of the narrative. You sort of lose your memory, like you're just part of it, like it's sort of an inception-y.
And
like,
plus, look what happens when Vision goes to start like to figure out what's happening to the like quote attacks by the quote what he says from the guys at work, the like like the ne'er-do-wells is the word he uses. The ne'er-do-wells out causing a kerfuffle. So he goes to that scene, which is like the all the men.
Which is
I told you about this.
That's got to be like
the secret guy is the guy who is the one that leaves Mr. Hart's office when Vision is in the very, very first scene, the guy that leaves Mr. Hart's office. I also think he's a guy that is sitting at that table who gives him the stick of gum. What is the stick of gum called? Big Red. I mean, come on. Like, they're just, the clues are there, y'all. The clues are there. This is going to be like a Rosemary's Baby situation, but it's going to be instead of like instead of them being like the child of the devil, you know, Agatha's going to reveal that the children aren't real, because she does that in the comics. She is the person who reveals that to Wanda, that when Wanda's not around, the children don't exist. And then that's when she just freaking loses it. That's when she just absolutely loses it. But Vision goes to the, like, you know, the neighborhood watch meeting about like, well, we got to toughen up all these security protocols and we've got to figure out what's going on with these crazy people. And they're like, Vision, we're not talking about that. That's not real. That doesn't happen. Don't worry about that at all. Here's a piece of gum, which ends up screwing him up. Do you know what I mean? Which ends up messing him up. And it completely, it turns him away from thinking about, like, quote, the outside threats. Because what happens when the helicopter like tries to penetrate the barrier, her magic makes it turn in. I think her magic makes the things like the beekeeper. If you look at the beekeeper's back, he actually has the sword logo on his back. Yeah, he has the sword logo on his back.
We haven't even talked about him.
And if we're assuming that Monica Rambeau is an agent of sword as well, that I guess that Doctor Strange tries to portal her into it, and I think that's why that's how Wanda is perceiving her, so that's why she has the portal on as the brooch. So that's how she gets in, you know. But the beekeeper as well, he comes from up. Maybe they try to dig under, which would make sense. Maybe they try to dig under where Wanda is to get into the bubble, because if it's like a bubble in like a under the dome kind of situation, maybe that's how they try to solve to get into it.
I think the beekeeper is actually Jimmy Woo, Randall Park, the sword agent. I know,
right.
There's been some people who like lighten up the photo, and it's clearly not that actor.
Yeah, misdirect. Yeah,
I think it's just like a trickery thing. Like, yeah, but I think that's Jimmy Woo. You know, because the character, it is very like startling and disturbing seeing him, you know, crawl out of the sewer, and it's meant to be like very dark. But I could also see, you know, like them walking up to him and Randall Park just taking off the beekeeper helmet and, you know, immediately go into jokes.
For the reality. So when these people step into this reality, they are put into whatever situation that she needs them to be in to make sense. Because when that doesn't make sense to her, when that happens, what does she do? No.
Yeah.
And then it, you know, it rewinds that it didn't make sense to her. It was breaking everything down. See, and that to me too is where it's like, I think they are manipulating Wanda to make that choice. Or maybe she, you know, because again, that she realizes like, this is not right. No, I don't want this. Like, you know, that's what I took from that moment. And then again, it just every bit of dialogue has like double meaning. It rewinds, and what's the first thing that she says? Vision, is this really happening? And it's like, it's a dual meaning in that moment, because it's like they're pregnant and she's like nervous and scared about the future and like, are we going to be able to do this? And then it's also like, is she asking if it's really like real? You know what I mean? Both of those things are happening in that moment. Oh, Elizabeth Olsen just nailed that moment so good. And you know, we talked about the pregnancy reveal that they did. It was so subtle and small. I literally gasped when she just turned around and he was like, oh, I mean, you know, it just was such a cool moment. It's going to be cool to see what they do with this with these kids moving forward, and how and who they are. I mean, who they're going to be.
Yeah, they've got to, you know, already have actors who have, you know, shot this.
I mean, they kept Mark Hamill a secret.
They kept
Mark Hamill a secret for a year. And
so much about the show secret for as long as they had.
Come on now, I'm telling you, they do have secrets in this, and there's people that they like. I think Benedict Cumberbatch is going to be in it. They haven't said one thing about him being in it at all. Like, you know, if it is, I think they're going to wait for that, because when it does happen, it's good. People are going to go ballistic. And you know, I mean, why would we want to see that? You know, we talked about that before too with these things, like, you know, like the Aquaman Aquaman moment with Jason Momoa. My gosh, when he comes out in that suit, it's just literally one of the most epic, like perfect superhero suit reveals ever. But why did you show that in the trailer? I already knew it was going to happen. You know what I mean? Like, if it just happened, I would have been like, oh my God. You know what I mean? Like, so I think that, Ben Affleck just went on he, in an interview just a couple of days ago, said, he was like, Kevin fucking Feige, man. He was like, he is literally the best producer ever in the history of movies. He was like, he knows exactly what the audience wants. He knows how to give them just enough, but to also give them a little bit of play that's going to happen in the future. And I think that's exactly what's happening here. All these things are connecting. It's going to connect to Doctor Strange. All of the pieces are coming together and making a lot of sense. I would even go so far as to say, Evan Peters keeps getting rumored to be in this, and I think he is going to be in it. And I think he's going to be Speed grown up. I think he is going to be Speed grown up. I don't think he's going to be Quicksilver from the multiverse. I think he's going to be Evan Peters. I mean, but here, what if they?
How
I
old
mean,
is
Haley
he?
Steinfeld's like 27.
Would he be too old?
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
if they're good, not all the Avengers have the young Avengers that they're setting these people
That's
up
true.
have to be like, and here's the thing, the show could end with them being like 25, 26. They could just be like who they are in the present now and not be like, what I'm saying there. That's a very, very easy. I also told you,
That's
I
true.
think that's the easiest way to make Monica Rambeau have the powers is that, wait a minute, you're not Captain Marvel, but you could be. Bewitched, and then all of a sudden she has the powers like Captain Marvel, and then when it comes back, when they're back in the reality, she has the powers now too. Like, that's a very that works for me in that way, to see how she becomes Spectrum. Is that who she becomes? Spectrum? What her name? Photon. Yeah, like her mom.
Yeah, because I think doesn't
Yes.
Carol even say like, oh, it's a photon blast in Captain Marvel? Yeah. I mean, I know we're just like praising Marvel and Kevin Feige and all of this, but I've definitely just got to give it up for them, because it just blows my mind that they've come out with all these movies.
Yeah.
It's been 13 years since Iron Man, and they're still like taking chances. Especially coming off of Endgame, like all these like movie execs are like, oh, who's the next big fad? Like, what's the next big crossover?
We're
like,
making a show that's tickets. A parody,
and for them to just go like, we have this really weird idea.
Okay, like I feel like if Kevin Feige could come in and say we're going to do that, but I feel like if someone was like, I think this would be the direction you go, like, he'd be like, you're insane. Oh,
I know. Like, all right, so we just came off Endgame and Far From Home. What's the next big idea? Johnson,
Dick Van
what
Dyke
you got?
meets the
How
Brain
about
Dyke?
Dick Van Dyke? Y'all, all those shows that like aren't even on the air anymore. Let's reference all of those. I mean, just is this still? I mean, I've watched each episode maybe 3 times at this point.
Yeah,
and I just watch it with like a smile on my face, because it's so fun. It's so nostalgic.
And it's like I just
feel
have this
so
like
fresh,
real big sense of dread. I have to admit that I do. I have a big sense of dread. I don't think this is going to end. I love that kind of Sophie's Choice kind of analogy you made with, and I do think that is going to lead up to something like that, where it's like, it's Wanda has everything she wants right now, but I don't think she's going to have everything she wants by the time that it's over. And I think she's going to be really, really mad at the people who have tricked her into thinking that she can have it all. So I really feel like there's going to be a lot of major, major consequences that happen at the end of this show. And I'm excited about it. And I actually don't even know if like what is the, we're already here to, but like, I don't even know what could be the second, like, I don't even know if there needs to be like a second season of the show already. Like, I feel like I know where they're going, or like, which maybe is a stupid thing to say, which it probably is, but I just obsessed already.
If I had to guess, I don't think there would be a second season of this show, just because I feel like they're using this show. It's so unique, and even as they're running through all these different decades, it ends like in a very modern way. So there's not that many like
He said that the shows are going to
references or
be. He
callbacks
said
that they
that
could
some
do
shows
without
are going to be
repeating
like
themselves.
series, and
But
some
I
will
think
be
this
more
will
than
be
one. He did say that. He has. I literally watched the interview where he said that. So, you and I talked about this before, Drew. That we think that like Falcon and the Winter Soldier will be one season, but then after Captain Mackie becomes Captain America, that it'll be either like a Captain America show. You know what I mean? Or it'll change the title, like that they couldn't call it Captain America the show because he quote isn't Captain America, and that's kind of like the struggle of the story, it seems like, or the end. But I could see them like the next season being like Captain America, and him being the new Captain America, and that being kind of rebranded that way too.
Especially with this new format they're creating with Disney Plus, like they have this one shared universe. There's the movies, there's the TV shows. The same way we were talking, like, the episode of Mandalorian, sometimes it's 30 minutes, sometimes it's 45. It's whatever it needs to be. I think they'll take that same thinking and apply it to like number of seasons. Like, okay,
because these
this
characters
show
are
will only
here
be
now,
one
and now
season
they're
because
over
it
here, and this
needs
show
it.
is
Like,
this.
it
Like
only
if Bucky
needs to
ends
be
up,
one
you talked
season.
about Bucky being on the
But
Thunderbolts, like it makes sense. Like if he goes to the Thunderbolts, well, now he's on the Thunderbolts show, and it makes sense if you've been watching it because that's where the narrative leads up to what it needs to be.
Exactly. How does it tie into that larger thread that's just running through every property in the MCU? You tell the story you need to tell, and then wherever it goes from there, like, you figure it out. Maybe this leads into another show. It's not WandaVision, but it's something else. Like, I think it's just, for them, it's moving forward. It's not just
not spinning the wheels.
Season 3 and
not
4.
Just spinning the
it's
wheels.
just that larger narrative. Where do the characters go? Yeah. There's still a chance for me to hit the stop button and my phone to crash.
WandaVision plot
or for me to
twist.
drop
You
my
didn't
phone in the
record it from the
toilet
beginning.
before I
We
can
just
back
wasted his
anything up. So,
time.
there's
We're gonna have to use the time so now to go back and re-record all this. But now we know we didn't screw up and what we need to cut out, so we can fix it.
This is actually take 1 of the Marvel
30
What Now
recordings
podcast.
for the first episode.
Do it a couple more times. We'll have 5 hours of.
We've been recording this
audio
first episode for 6 years. That's why it's taken so long. Is we've recorded over and over.
This is our 2-hour. We're actually recording on tape right now.
And we've been gabbing here for a little bit, so I think it's a good time to wrap it up now, and maybe we can condense it a little bit next time if we have more than just ourselves and our partners who listen to this. And we'll do one next week for episode 3.
And yeah, so stick around. It's been fun. I'm excited.
Love you, brother. Bye.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to Marvel What Now podcast. This is Curt. For more theories and custom artwork, you can follow on social media at Marvel What Now.
And I am Peyton, and for more pictures of me shirtless and just general buffoonery, you can find me on Instagram at P4Peyton, Peyton. Be sure to like and subscribe at the bottom, and we will see you when we see you, because we owe you nothing.